Hello, welcome to the Citrus Garden. If you're new here, my name is Christina. If you're not new here, hi, welcome back. It's great to see you. This is a reading for Cancer moon signs, or if you have significant Cancer placements in your chart and are needing a feminine energy to work with or balance within yourself, then this reading is for you. So Cancer, let's get started with your reading. So you have at the bottom of the deck the one card. And then with this one, you have the Singer of Courage. The Singer of Courage is the overall context because I feel like you're doing something, Cancer, or there's something that you're headed towards that is going to require a bit of courage, because underneath the one card, you have the Dead End, but it's in reverse, which is really interesting. So it kind of feels like, because you do have other cards that are coming out in reverse in the spread, and I feel like that's not your energy. It feels like it's coming from somebody else, but and so I feel like this is related. It's like there's something here about like somebody who, perhaps a person, or like it could just, however it's playing out for you, I'm just gonna explain it as being sort of like maybe an individual who is telling you that maybe that one path that you're going towards is a dead end, is kind of how it's coming through, or trying to encourage you to take another path is kind of how it's feeling to me, when I feel like that might be something that you're getting some clarity about, is kind of how that's feeling. So the first two cards to come out, that's the overall context. The first two cards to come out are the Apocalypsis and the Bardo, which is so interesting. So the Apocalypsis talks about removing the veil on something, right? Some sort of deception perhaps is being revealed. And I feel like with this card here, the Bardo, this talks about sort of like a liminal space. It's sort of like the in-between space where kind of like things are uncertain. It was kind of coming through as being like at the end of the Harry Potter series, when Harry is about to like, he goes through this sort of transition where he ends up in sort of like a Bardo space, which is represented by the King's Cross station, where he meets with his mentor. And he sees this truth about this enemy that he's been fighting, right? Like he sees the truth about that individual. So it kind of feels like something like that with the Apocalypsis, where it's like some sort of veil of deception is being removed, where he like perhaps Cancer, you're seeing some sort of truth about a situation that has perhaps been difficult for you, or is kind of feeling like perhaps it was feeling like a dead end, maybe. But I feel like there's clarity coming through here, because with these cards here, so the Taum the Poet came out in reverse. And so specifically in the reverse position, it was talking about, again, another, like it specifically said in the guidebook, some sort of like uncovering of a lie, right? Like, and it doesn't necessarily feel like a lie, but it feels kind of like you're seeing the truth about a situation, perhaps, or some sort of veil of deception being removed that's bringing you a lot of clarity. And then what's coming out after that is the Ecstasis card, which is talking about all of this joy. So I feel like in like just happiness and bliss and like it's also kind of coming through as like recognizing a difference between you and another, right? So it's kind of like it was 444 as I said that. It's kind of coming through as being like, so maybe there's another person in this dynamic who perhaps was a reflection to you in some way at one point of your life, perhaps. But it kind of feels like there's some sort of veil of deception being removed from that relationship, because it's like it's coming out with these two cards. You have here the bridge and the swan. Sorry for the lighting. It's messing with the focusing of this camera. But so the bridge and the swan. So this is the moon card and this is the high priestess. And the high priestess came out, the swan card came out in reversed, where I feel like with this bridge card, it's so first of all, I'm filming this during the new moon, right? Which I was thinking about as being sort of like a time where there's no reflection of the sun's light, right? So it's kind of like it was coming through as like reflection here, right? With the swan, because it was coming through in reverse, it's kind of like emphasizing the reflection. So the reflection is not the real image. It's not reality, so to speak. It's not a 3D object, the images, the reflection. So it's kind of like there may have been something that you were looking at, or perhaps like perhaps at one point it was a reflection to you, but now you're seeing it as being an illusion in some way, or there's some sort of illusion being revealed, is kind of how that's coming through. Which is so interesting. And the Bardo's coming out with sort of like, it's coming through as being sort of like a space or a temporary, almost like a bubble that you're in, where like anything is possible, where forgiveness happens, where you can let go of something. I feel like you're letting go of something in order for you to move forward, because it's kind of like the cards that came out next, which are really interesting. The comic and the gem both came out in reverse like this. Not even on its side, they were very clearly reverse. And so I feel like this is not your energy, but the comic in reverse is kind of like a really negative, it can be really negative, where it's like, I feel like we've all experienced a comic in reverse, right? Like somebody who's just like mean. Somebody who's just mean is how I'm gonna leave it. With the gem as well, it sort of feels like maybe that they have something, that you have something that they are envious of, is kind of how it's coming through. I'm just gonna leave it like that. And it just kind of feels like there's something about you, right? Because it's kind of like here with the reflection, they were trying to reflect something that you have, is how that's feeling. And so maybe you saw them as a reflection because they were reflecting something that you have back to you, if that makes sense. And so what's coming up underneath this with the shaman, right? Because I'm seeing this as being sort of like the liminal space, right? Whatever that means. It's like in King's Cross Station. You know whose true form was revealed to Harry, like that kind of scene, if you're familiar with that scene. So it's kind of feeling like that, right? And so it's kind of like, because if you look at the imagery of this card, there's both the gem and these skulls, which is kind of like this Bardo energy. So it's kind of like you're in sort of this space here with the shaman, because this card talks about sort of like a bridge, again with the moon card, right? The fact that there's, in the new moon, there's no reflection of the sun's light. So it's kind of like, it's almost like in the quote unquote darkness, like all is revealed, or like true colors come out, is kind of what's coming through. And so it's feeling like there's some sort of energy here of like, there was somebody, whoever this represents to you, who was perhaps like presenting as a reflection to you in some way, but it's kind of like there was some sort of illusion present. And so it's kind of like you're in this space with the shaman, like perhaps healing something about yourself, because it's kind of like, as well, especially if somebody's reflecting something back to you, they may also reflect some of their own things, right? Whatever that is, their own anxieties, their own worries, their own whatever. They may be projecting that onto you as well. So it's kind of like when you understand sort of the separation actually from whoever this is, it's kind of like you can also see what it is that they were projecting onto you, which perhaps may have been affecting some aspect of your life, or like seeing something as being, like maybe they were seeing something of yours as being a dead end when for you it's not. And so it's because it's kind of looking to me like now, like with the shaman, it is talking about healing, but it's something where it's like feeling like something spiritual. Like if you're doing some sort of spiritual healing, it's also having an effect on a physical aspect as well, right? Because it's the bridge. It's bringing something into the physical. And I feel like here with this, with the next card out here, the Bright Mother, which I really love. I feel like this is your energy. This card is just emphasizing to me abundance today, that you have an abundance, and I feel like there's sort of coming through as being like appreciating all that you have. It's also taking a moment to, first of all, appreciate everything that you have, and also asking yourself, like, what is it that you want to create next? What is needed in order to create what it is that you want to create next? And I feel like that will be where you will be sort of focusing in the next part of this as well, because you do have the unknown coming out next. So it's almost like with this Bardo energy, which is sort of like a temporary liminal space, right? It's almost like a little bubble that you're in, where it's like you're perhaps letting things go or seeing the truth about something. It's bringing a lot of clarity, and it's also giving you sort of like a moment to ask yourself like what it is that you want to create next, and what it is that you're going to be stepping into next here with the unknown. It's like this fact that it's not focusing on the card is bothering me, but what is it that you want to go towards next? I feel like there is sort of like a little bit more, there's almost like a tiny bit more to go through is kind of how it's coming through, because the next card out you have is the Dark Lady. So this card is specifically talking about like the new moon, which is again today, but also the fact that it's kind of like the Dark Lady is the one who brings you through a transition where it's kind of like after the harvest, after all of the abundance has been harvested, and after the ending, right? It's like you're past the ending, you're past sort of the death energy, and you're in the temporary liminal space in between, is kind of how it's coming through. So you're about to step into the new thing. I feel like you've already gone through sort of like the hardest part, quote unquote. It's kind of like, it's just like the ending part of it that's happening here. That's what I'm seeing here with the Dark Lady. And it's I feel like it's kind of emphasizing here that there's like perhaps like one thing that you're needing to reclaim, because with the Shaman card, I sometimes see this as being sort of like reclaiming something, perhaps the gem, perhaps something that was I don't want to say that it was taken from you, but it's kind of feeling like with the comic, like somebody, I'm using that as an example. Like there was a situation perhaps where the aspect of the gem, like your gifts, your uniqueness, whatever it is, something that's like precious about you was perhaps covered up, or whatever that is. Like there was a veil placed upon this aspect of you. It's kind of how it's coming through. So it may be sort of like a process of reclaiming that or getting that back, is how that's feeling. With these two cards, the 10 of Embers and the 7 of Lotuses. I feel like this is, so again, this is sort of, in this deck, all of the imagery sort of connects to one another. So the 9 of Embers in this deck is sort of like a volcano erupting, right? So it's like you're past that part now. You're past sort of the hardest part of whatever this was, and now you're in sort of like the aftermath, so to speak, if we want to use those terms. Doesn't quite feel that, like, it feels very peaceful, actually. It's kind of, it feels like a very peaceful letting go of something. And it could be some sort of like past energy, but here with the 7 of Lotuses, this card to me always talks about sort of like, again, it's that liminal space. It's sort of like, it's kind of coming through as being sort of like waiting until the storm passes, that kind of thing. And I feel like it is passing. You've gone through the hardest part of it, is what that's feeling like. But there is kind of like this energy here with the 9 of Swords, the 9 of Birds coming out next, where it's like, there's perhaps like a bit of anxiety that's still remaining, that's coming from an outside source, whatever that is. There may be like an outside source of anxiety. I'm just going to leave it generally like that. That may sort of need to be cleaned out still. But you do have here, these cards came out together with the Shaman, the Village and the Womb card. Both of these are talking about like a return to the beginning of something, especially with the Village, right? This card talks about nostalgia and like your roots, but ultimately is a place that you are leaving in order to grow, right? So it could be something like a temporary return to this energy. It could also just be like a temporary return to the beginning of whatever this cycle was for you, where it's like you may be feeling sort of like going back to the beginning of when this all started and like who you were at that time, like experiencing sort of like a past version of yourself before you went through a significant transition or experience, and seeing how those people are very different people, like a past version of yourself and who you are now. So you may be seeing something like that, like your origin story, so to speak, a previous version of yourself before you've gone through this significant transition, and like almost like seeing the difference. So that could also be here with the Swan. It may not be another person that you're comparing, or that like you're seeing the differences between. It may be like you're seeing the differences between who you are now, who you are today, and who you were in the past, a past version of yourself. Anyways, what's coming up next for you, Cancer? You have here the Singer of Intuition, which always talks to me about like receiving more information little by little about what is ahead for you, like what's on the path ahead for you. So you may already be getting that, especially with all of this energy of like abundance and creation and like the bright mother and the womb. I feel like there's a focus on like what it is that you will be creating next. Like what sort of abundance are you going to be creating next? And you have here the Master Maker, which is again talking about creation, but also talks about like skill and mastery, like whatever it is that you're doing or focusing on, doing it with all of your skill, all of your effort, and doing the best job that you can with what it is that you're doing, right? It talks about like really caring about your work and putting a lot of focus into your craft and mastering something. So I feel like that's going to be the focus for you. But you have really lovely cards here. The Two of Cups, the Two of Lotuses, and the Ace of Embers. So there could be a significant relationship. With the Ace of Embers, it's emphasizing sort of like a passionate beginning or whatever this is for you, right? Like a lot of inspiration, a lot of fire and passion, which is so lovely. The Two of Lotuses in this card specifically talks to me about like intimacy. So there may be like a significant relationship that's going to be the center of what it is that you're creating. And you also have here, so it's interesting because you have like all of like 2 sets of positive cards, and then like they're sort of like surrounded by these, right? The 9 of Birds, which we already talked about, and then the 6 of Birds. But I'm kind of seeing this as being like the 9 of Birds may be what you're focusing on, like the anxiety, specifically perhaps coming from other people. And it's kind of like the 6 of Birds is looking to me like it's like distancing yourself from whatever those anxieties are, right? Because this card talks about sort of like, I see this as being sort of like seeing something from a distance that's almost like not related to you. Like it's kind of like when you pass like an accident on the when you're driving, right? It's not an easy thing to look at, but it's also not happening to you, if that makes sense. Does that sound too like callous? It's kind of just like, but it's kind of like, I feel like there was maybe somebody who is trying to involve you in their stuff, if that makes sense. Like it's kind of like there may be somebody who is like trying to involve you or draw you into their own anxieties or whatever. I'm just using that word because it's coming out with the 9 of Birds, their own fears, their own issues. And it's kind of like here distancing yourself from that because it feels like it actually does not have anything to do with you, or that it's they were trying to draw you in because they wanted some sort of like, they wanted this gem that you have, right? So it's kind of like distancing yourself from their energy and sort of like, that's not my problem, right? Like that's not my issue, that's not my fear, that's not my anxiety, and sort of moving on past that, because what you have next here, the Infinite Paths and the 10 of Lotuses, this is the Sun energy, right? The Sun into the 10 of Cups. So it's like you're perhaps in this period of like quote unquote the liminal space, the new moon, where it's like it doesn't feel like a dark night of the soul. It does not feel like that. It feels like a very peaceful transition into the Sun energy and the 10 of Cups, right? So you're moving, you're in this space that feels like incredibly peaceful, where you're letting something go of like somebody who tried to put some sort of anxiety or fear onto you because of whatever reason. And it's like you're understanding that that is not yours. That's not your problem. That's not your fear. And it's almost like seeing that from a distance because you're headed towards this, the Sun and the 10 of Pentacles. So Cancer, I'm going to leave it there. I hope this resonated with you. If it did, please like, subscribe, or leave a comment down below. It helps so much. Thank you for sharing your energy with me, and I hope you have a great night. Bye.